And the nuclear backlash that A'ja Wilson is getting right now over the reveal of her...
Brace yourself, because according to the narrative unfolding this week, A'ja Wilson was hit with a harsh, almost cinematic reality check. And this wasn't some minor bump in the road. To many fans watching this drama unfold, it felt like the kind of moment that can shadow an athlete's entire career. For 2 straight years, she's been firing shots toward Caitlin Clark, a player Wilson seemed convinced she had completely outshined. But in the eyes of fans following the storyline, Team USA just delivered what looked like the ultimate twist. Instead of elevating Wilson, the buzz is that she was pushed to the margins, while Caitlin Clark was propelled straight into the spotlight of the senior national pool for the 2026 World Cup and the highly anticipated 2028 Olympics. Now, again, this is how fans are interpreting the tension, but the dramatic effect is undeniable. And we've got the full, unfiltered breakdown of the fan-framed meltdown, and, even more intriguing, the one glaring vulnerability in Wilson's game that many believe the establishment has never been willing to address publicly. But before we dive in, I want to hear from you. In this unfolding storyline, do you think Wilson should have been sidelined the way fans are saying? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
If you're taken aback by that, if you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't compute. What about all of the A'ja Wilson Nike outrage last year that subjected not only Caitlin Clark, but her fans to
the scene in your mind? Imagine being hailed as one of the WNBA's absolute legends, a player whose very name feels inseparable from the league itself, only to have what should have been the crowning moment of your career ripped away. Unthinkable, right? Yet that, according to the story fans are following, is exactly what just unfolded for A'ja Wilson. The woman who has carried herself as the living embodiment of women's basketball was suddenly confronted with a very public, undeniably painful lesson. No reputation, no matter how dazzling, guarantees your place at the top. Team USA's choice to bypass her while placing Caitlin Clark in the senior selection pool wasn't some casual, numbers-driven decision. This, in the eyes of observers, was a stark, ruthless evaluation of whose skills actually translate to the high-stakes global stage. And the outcome reads like a cinematic cautionary tale, a vivid example of what happens when spectacle is mistaken for substance, and when chaos is allowed to outweigh steady, proven talent.
By Chelsea Gray into A'ja Wilson.
And here lies the WNBA's most closely guarded secret, the one the league's old guard conveniently looks past time and again. There's a glaring vulnerability in Wilson's game. Not that she isn't elite, far from it, but much of her dominance runs on the favor of the whistle, not purely on raw, unstoppable skill. Consider this, she averages nearly 12 free throw attempts per game. At first glance, that screams unstoppable force, right? But here's the part rarely discussed, it's actually a sign of a player who has perfected the art of drawing contact, of turning every drive into a subtle performance. Every trip to the rim often includes a calculated flail, a motion designed to catch the referee's eye. Numerous defensive battles end with dramatic appeals for calls in her favor. For years, WNBA officials have protected offensive stars like Wilson, letting her thrive in a system that rewards this approach. A brilliant strategy, absolutely, within the league's own rules. But here's the twist. On the global stage, where officiating is different and the margins are razor-thin, this reliance becomes a glaring weakness, one that can instantly derail even the most decorated career.
It looked like they really were intentional about going to Aaliyah in the second half. What was, I guess, difficult about containing her? I know you guys kind of touched on a few things, maybe with the foul calls, but what made it successful for them to keep going to her tonight?
I don't know. You're going to have to ask Aaliyah that question. I honestly, you just do your work. You got to do your work early and make it different. But Aaliyah did say I have a special whistle. And she shot 13 today.
She said that to you?
Yeah. Yeah. She said the last game I had a special whistle, which is cool. So we just got to play their better defense, make her look a little difficult. And
that's exactly why Team USA's coaches and scouts weren't sitting around admiring her WNBA highlight reels or counting her MVP awards. No, what they were doing was scrutinizing her performances in international exhibitions, and what they saw left them stunned. Here's the key distinction. FIBA referees don't give a second thought to domestic accolades or shiny trophies. They allow a level of physicality and intensity that, in a WNBA matchup, would send Wilson to the line repeatedly without hesitation. But on the international court, that same contact is absorbed into the flow of the game, and suddenly, any player whose scoring relies heavily on the whistle is laid bare. It's an unforgiving reality, a brutal litmus test that separates those built to dominate on the global stage from those whose success depends on a more tightly controlled environment. For Wilson, it became painfully clear that her strengths at home didn't automatically translate to supremacy abroad.
Folks are talking about Asia Wilson, you know, the player on the team where people are abandoning like rats off a sinking ship. You know, Asia Wilson, who has won 2 championships in the WNBA. Asia Wilson, who was crowned MVP before the 2024 season started. Asia Wilson, you know, she's a really good basketball player. But back to culture. I wouldn't want Asia Wilson on my team, or maybe I should turn it around. Since she's Asia Wilson, I wouldn't want to be on.
That, my friends, brings us to the glaring, undeniable contrast with Caitlin Clark. Honestly, Clark plays on a completely different level when it comes to her offensive game. Picture this. She's pulling up from 30, even 35 feet, sinking shots that no referee, no matter how partial, can ever take away. When defenders collide with her, she finishes through the contact, often without even glancing for a whistle. Those signature step-back threes and impossibly deep-range bombs? Pure self-reliance. Clark defeats defenders with a masterful blend of impeccable shot selection, elite basketball IQ, and lightning-fast footwork, a skill set that works anywhere, on any court, regardless of who's officiating. Now, let's look at the stark numbers. Team USA scouts watched Wilson's efficiency plummet during international games. Why? Because referees there let real, physical defense happen. Her output dropped sharply, all those marginal calls she had leaned on in the WNBA simply vanished. Meanwhile, Clark's stats remained rock solid. Why? Her game is built on creating space, high release points, and insane shooting range, not on drawing fouls. The difference isn't subtle. It's screamingly obvious. Wilson initiates contact, then prays for the whistle. Clark anticipates it, adjusts midair, and scores through it. Wilson's approach thrives in the controlled, offense-friendly WNBA environment. Clark's method, however, translates seamlessly across the globe, a system built on fundamental, unassailable skill rather than exploiting rules. International play demands adaptability, more physical, less stoppage, with referees letting both sides fight through contact. Wilson's reliance on favorable whistles becomes a liability. Team USA needs players who can adjust on the fly, and Wilson's dependence on WNBA officiating makes her a colossal risk for Olympic glory, while Clark embodies the versatility and resilience required to dominate anywhere.